car, so obviously they can't specifically deliver the car. You might be able to sue and get the $250 because you would, even though you bought the car for $100, if the value of what it costs to get that same car is $250, that could be your remedy. So we talked about remedies for the seller, remedies for the buyer, and then remedies for the broker. Let's say that we're talking about 6% for the broker in my example before. What if you thought you'd be you found someone who wants to buy the home, but they want to buy the home for 5% less than what you want to sell it for. So you're thinking to yourself, well, this is easy. I'll just tell the person to come back at the end. I'll avoid my contract with my broker, and I'll tell them to come back, a couple weeks, and then I'll just sell it to them. Well, you'll find out when you read the contracts with the broker that what's going to end up happening is you're going to still be responsible for that 6%. So the broker will still get their money. But if let's say you want to sell the home for $100,000, and the broker brings someone who's willing to buy the home for $99,000, and you turn that person down, even though they say they'll accept everything about the contract, but they want $1,000 less than what you're offering, and so they made a counter offer, you rejected the offer. That broker isn't entitled to anything, even though he brought someone in who's willing to do $99,000. But if the person is willing to do, in that example, $100,000, and then your offer's been accepted, and then for some reason you decide to violate the contract and don't go through with it, the broker's entitled to their commission. Try again. So you made an offer. I'll sell you my house for $100,000. I accept. It's in writing. Contract about to happen, and suddenly the buyer goes, you know what? I don't really want to sell the home. I decided I grew up here all my life. I don't want to. It means too much to me. I don't want to sell the home. All right. Even if the contract doesn't happen, the broker is still entitled to their fee. So let me go back a second. Let's say you tell, in my example before, I said you tell the person, hey, come back later, and I'll sell it to you for less money. What you do is what you made with them is a contract. So there is a valid contract. The brokers are going to be entitled to their percentage of money based upon the sale value of the contract. So there was a contract, so that's why the brokers are going to be entitled to their money, even though that contract was for less than the original listing amount. So at any point in time, if there's a valid contract where the broker and then the buyer backs out, the seller backs out, the seller is going to be liable to the broker for the amount of the commission. And in the book there's that case Donald U. Corp versus Laszlo and Tauber, MD and Associates. It talks about the issue of the broker being paid money and when it would be due and owing. So read that over. It's probably not a bad idea on your own to do some own, if you're curious about how that works, to do your own independent research, since you know how to do it from when we did that earlier this semester, and see different examples of when the broker is due or owed their money. As far as testing you on that subject, it would be as simple as I said before. If the seller of the property backs out of the contract after the contract has been accepted, does the broker have a cause of action for the commission against the seller of the property? And the answer is going to be yes, absent a provision in the contract that says that that's not when the broker is going to be entitled to their commission. When you read this Donald U. Corp versus Laszlo Tauber case, it does say a brokerage commission may be legally conditioned upon a closing of the title. Once again, it's all going to be about contracts. And if you want to be crystal clear, the answer to every lawyer's answer to someone's question about, well, do I have the ability to sue, or what's my rights here, the lawyer will always say, I need to see the contract, because the contract will have the information for a lawyer to be able to review in order to determine whether in fact there's a cause of action, or another meaning of cause of action is an ability to sue. Usually it's going to be in the contract. You have the ability, as I said before, to make a bad deal. So if in your contract you've given up certain rights, well, then those rights that you might have otherwise been able to sue for, you're not going to be able to sue for. one of the other things I mentioned, let me see if it's in the book, what I mentioned earlier this year, is something called a language that might say that this is the entire agreement. Let's see, I don't see it listed in the book. And that line number 256 of the contract says, other agreements. No prior or present agreements or representation shall be binding upon the buyer or seller unless included in this contract. No modification to or change in this contract shall be valid or binding upon the parties unless in writing and executed by the parties intended to be bound by it. So, if in your contract you don't specifically include here that in, about the personal property, and then you have to argue later about whether it's a fixture or personal property, well, it doesn't matter that people might have said, oh, that's going to be included or not included. That